According to Joe Burrow, the Bengals Super Bowl window is his entire career. Well, how has Cincinnati surrounded him for 2023? It's Bengals Day, and we're breaking them down from every angle today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day. And, of course, a big welcome and shout-out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started.
Joe, I'm wishing you a good morning, a happy Monday, and also wishing best of luck to the police officer in my town who is having a career best day today. I took my daughter to daycare and back, and then at the same intersection went to go get gas and a few energy drinks, and then back to the same intersection to go back to my house, and he had 4 different cars pulled over each time I passed through the same intersection.
Wow. He woke up today and said, I'm after these people.
They got a quota to fill, you know? I don't know what it is, but he's having a career morning, all of that within probably a 30-minute window this morning.
I have some revolutionary advice for people looking to avoid traffic violations.
Don't sneak through that yellow light?
Yeah, just don't break the law. You won't get pulled over. Pretty like don't speed, stop at the red lights, stop at stop signs.
Well, that's tough because like
signal.
Generally socially accepted is what 5 to 7 miles per hour over the speed limit is the standard driving rate. Like if somebody's going in front of you and they're doing the speed limit, I would say probably more than 50% of Americans would be upset at that person for just driving the speed limit.
Yeah, but like I'm just saying if you don't want to get a ticket.
Well, yeah.
I'm like a 5 over guy. I'm not a big time over guy.
5 over
very,
guy.
Very cautious driver, as you know.
I have mellowed out quite a good deal in my older age.
I never thought of you as an aggressive driver. You've been a fine driver.
Yeah, I just get angry when people don't know how to drive.
Yeah, you got some good expressions for that. Your road rage. Your road rage.
You've heard me on the phone way too many times in the car.
Yeah.
We have way too many of our phone conversations while I'm in the car, and you get all the best nuggets.
Yeah. All right, Bengals Day here on the podcast. Welcome. Is it Who Dat Nation or Who Day? I can never remember.
No, Who Dat's the Saints.
Yeah. So
Who
how do you
Dat say
remember
they're
this?
gonna beat them Saints? Who Day is the
Who
Bengals.
Day? All right, welcome
Who Day.
Who Day Nation. Here we're going to talk about your football team. You're next up. It's a busy start to the week here. We've got Bengals, Bills, Chiefs here this week to get things started. Some AFC powerhouses, and Bengals are up first. We've studied the tape. We've studied your roster. We've categorized every player, and we are going to talk about the Bengals here today, starting with the offense. So, Kyle, I've done the lead in here. As you've studied the Bengals offense, what's that prevailing thought that you want to bring up first here?
It's nice to look at the Bengals and not have to be worried about the offensive line. I think that's the first thing, that where you look at the massive influx that they had last year, right? When they signed Lyle Collins, they signed Alex Kappa, they drafted Cordell Volson, they signed Ted Karras. Didn't they draft Deontay Smith and Trey Hill last year? Like, they brought in like 6 new offensive linemen. Draftees do math, that's not the correct number, but they brought in this massive influx of offensive linemen. They bring in Orlando Brown Jr. this year. We don't know what's going to happen with Jonah Williams. We don't know what's going to happen with Lyle Collins, but nevertheless, Kappa, Karras, Volson looks like a really promising interior trio, and obviously they're paying Orlando Brown to be the left tackle. So I thought they were very good in protection. Obviously, the memes of Joe Burrow at the beginning of the year last year asking like no more empty protections, like they found better balance as the year went on, but I do think that group in general, that the talent is there. for them to continue to thrive with Joe Burrow and Joe Burrow's strengths as a quarterback and getting into the right play at the line of scrimmage and anticipating when he's hot and where there's pressure. So I just think from a protection standpoint and a skills perspective, we don't have to have this conversation anymore about Cincinnati and the offensive line, which I think is really nice.
Well, and it certainly seems like they're unconcerned by Jonah Williams' trade request that came out after the Orlando Brown. I did some reading on that this morning, and like every indication is like
he's playing right tackle.
He's going to play right tackle. Like that's cool. Like thanks for the trade stuff, but that's just how the Bengals have operated for a number of years.
I'm not going to. So quit asking.
You're going to play this position and hold your feet to the fire, and I think that's going to apply to Jonah Williams. And I think for Jonah Williams, the best thing he can do is embrace playing right tackle, show some versatility, and go do it. We'll see what happens with Lyle Collins, late season ACL tear, big person, tough, right, to imagine what his status is going to be like. We know there's some cap benefit if they were to move on here post 6-1. So that's an interesting dynamic. But, yeah, I think collectively this offensive line has really come a long way, and you don't have to look at it and feel like Joe Burrow doesn't have a chance to function. And even last year, late in the season, that depth got stressed again. Both their tackles got injured. And, they went into Buffalo and ran the football like crazy and protected Joe Burrow like crazy. And, that depth was really able to emerge. And credit to Frank Smith and that offensive line coach for what he's been able to manufacture out of it. This offense is really similar personnel-wise to last year. I mean, we got a new left tackle in Orlando Brown. We're switching Jonah Williams over. We're swapping out Irv Smith for Hayden Hurst, and that's pretty much running it back here with these guys. I mean, maybe you could look at Samaje Perine as the backup running back and, kind of playing a meaningful role last year as both a pass catcher, between the tackles runner, and even catching the football. He had a role. So now I'm interested to see how that RB2 situation takes place here. They drafted Chase Brown. I know you're going to be excited about that, but Chris Evans is a dynamic talent, physical talent. They got some guys here. Even Travion Williams, I think, has shown some ability here as an RB4 depth, some return stuff. But the offensive line looks good. I'm interested in seeing how RB2 settles itself out. I'm interested to see how Irv Smith acclimates here. But then it's Joe Burrow throwing the football to T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase, right? That's the bread and butter of this offense.
Right. And we've had some conversations about Cincinnati before and heavy 11 personnel team. And rightfully so. I think at the end of the day, the best iterations of football are not the most complex iterations of football. They are simplistic approaches that are extremely challenging to stop because you have elite talent on the field. And that... Have you watched Brett Coleman with Bootleg Football? Who outstanding,
terrific,
right?
Yeah.
Him and EJ, they're both great people. Very good content. Did you watch his Tampa 2 is a lie video?
No, I have it in my watch later queue. It's been hanging out there for a while.
I'm gonna bury the lead just a little bit.
Okay.
Tampa 2, a variation of Cover 3, and he's talked about the evolution of coverages in the NFL level. And he talked a little bit about the Legion of Boom and that Seattle defense. And when Seattle's Legion of Boom happened, I liken this Cincinnati offense with 11 personnel to the Legion of Boom on the defensive side of the football. Because it happened and it worked because they had elite talent at all these junctures, and this perfect player for this perfect role, and Richard Sherman on the corner, and Earl Thomas is this unicorn high post player, and Cam Chancellor is the guy that's down in the box, and Bobby Wagner at the linebacker position. It worked because you had elite players at the critical positions. And then everybody else across the league tries to replicate it. And you can't replicate it because while you can take the concepts, and the concepts are simple, the application of it only works when you have the elite rare talents doing the things at those specific positions. If you took the Cincinnati offense and you said, we're going to do what Cincinnati does, but we're going to do it with somebody that's not Jamar Chase, somebody who's not T. Higgins, and somebody who's not Joe Burrow. That's going to be a really ugly picture to paint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's where Cincinnati is such a difficult team to defend and why I think they're such a fun offense, because at its core, They don't play the most nuanced or complex variation of football. It's instincts, it's elite talent on the perimeter, and it's a really special distributor of the football at the quarterback position who gets it and sees the big picture and sees the 30,000-foot view and the microscopic details at the same time in Joe Burrow.
I think that's an awesome parallel to draw. I think one thing that I think Bengals fans wonder, and even I wonder, is, well, what if you did have a little bit more dynamic scheme, right? Like, what if this wasn't just Joe Burrow throw the football to top tier separators and within great timing and rhythm? Like, what if you did have more play action? What if you did have more RPO screen game type stuff? What if that stuff was part of your identity as an offense? Like, how much more dynamic could it be? It's they set a high floor with what they do, but I'd kind of be interested in seeing how that can evolve and even be more difficult to defend. So, all right, well, that's the Bengals offense. Anything else?
Offense.
Yeah, they're really good.
That's it.
Defense is coming up here in just a moment, but first, make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if that first bet doesn't win. And there's so much to love about betting over at FanDuel. They got great promotions. It's a safe and secure, simple-to-use app. You get paid instantly, and there's tons of action to get in on, whether it is the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals or the Major League Baseball season or football's futures. They have so much to get in on. There's simply no better place to get in on the sports action than America's #1 sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get that no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Lou Anarumo's a trip, ain't he?
He's elite.
Man, what they bring from a variety perspective is really, really fun on the back end. And I think you look at this Bengals team defensively and how they have had certain matchups throughout the course of the year where when they smell blood in the water, they really create a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of turnovers. I mean, they had multiple games last year, 3 games last year with 4 turnovers forced. They had another one with 3 turnovers forced. They create a lot of confusion, and they are really fun to watch with how they keep opposing offenses on their toes. It's kind of the inverse of what they do offensively.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think anybody who's studied Lou Anarumo and this Bengals defense over the last couple of years, really starting with that playoff run, 2021, where they went to the Super Bowl, and what they were able to do with just the multiplicity of their schemes. And that defense can look one way for the first half and completely flip upside down in the second half. I mean, it's the most multiple, diverse defense that I've seen in the NFL. I think where it really starts, and I know that you don't fully agree with what I'm about to say, but this is a team, and it might be the only team in the league that I'll have graded this way, where every one of their 4 starting down linemen and both of their stack linebackers receive a quality starter grade or higher. I think that this, and as somebody who champions front 7 play as the nuts and bolts of a defense, like it's really fun to see just how solid this group of Hendrickson, Reeder, Hill, Hubbard, Wilson, and Pratt is. I think that's just a really, really collectively in totality just about as good of a front 7 in terms of starters as you're going to find.
And speaking of the box, what we need to do is throw the Bengals a parade for finally uniting us on a nickel player. We have Mike Hilton graded. Both of us, which might be the first time in 2 weeks we've had the nickel player graded exactly the same.
Yeah,
we come in here in the pre-show and it's like, oh, well, we didn't agree on the nickel again. And I thought for sure we were going to have to do it again because roster cornerstone for Mike Hilton's a very, very lofty assignment, but he is the best nickel defender in football as far as I'm concerned. If you're asking me who the best coverage player is who lives in the nickel, it's Mike Hilton.
He's up there. He's up there really high. He's an absolute stud. Best blitzing defensive back in the league. Most physical corner, the slot corner, I think, in the league.
Awesome tackler.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he just I'm sure Bengals fans love having him. Like, you know what I mean? Just one of those dudes that just like like everybody's low-key favorite player, right? Everybody sure loves Chase and Boyd and Higgins and Burrow, but man, Hilton's that dude.
Taking time out.
All right.
Let's say the Bengals, they draft another safety next offseason, right? And I don't know Hilton's contract situation off the top of my head, but let's say Mike Hilton's under contract for 2024 and they end up drafting another safety and they want to say, oh, you know, maybe we could save some money. Maybe we'll move Daxton Hill to nickel corner. What would Mike Hilton be worth in a trade? What would you trade for Mike Hilton?
I mean, slot value has been impossible for us to sort out, right?
Correct.
Now we're talking about trading. I mean, you remember when Des King was floated around? Like, there was, like, no market. Hilton's better, but, like...
Hilton's owed $6.45 million in cash next year.
I think
they would never trade him, right? But it's like how you and I have had the Justin Tucker debate. Like, what would you trade for Justin Tucker? Like, Hilton's like the defensive version of the same thing. Hey, nice Birddogs tumbler. Yeah,
thank you.
Still only 29 years old, too.
He's a player.
Been a player for a long time.
I think a big storyline with this Bengals defense is obviously switching out the safeties, right? Von Bell, Jesse Bates, a really, really high-quality pair. And now you're stepping into Dax Hill, who, I mean, he played a little bit as a rookie, but you know now his real opportunity comes. Mm-hmm. And Nick Scott, who you bring over from the Rams, who I think, you know, physical, athletic player, but you know we've
pretty good athlete,
right? But Von Bell is a really high quality player, so that swapping them players out is going to be an interesting dynamic here, as well as at corner the return of Chidobe Awuzie, who's been awesome when he's been healthy, and the way he started last year was phenomenal. And then Cam Taylor-Britt, who was a rookie, who I thought stepped up and just got better every week, even into the playoffs. And so how does this secondary stabilize? I mean, it's a group that's never played together before. You know what I mean? And so while that front seven is really, really, to me, a lot of continuity, a lot to like, and there's a lot to like about the secondary, but piecing it all together is going to be important. And Lou Anarumo has a great history of doing this, but that's his big task here in 2023.
Yeah, I'm going to float something out there, and it might not be the most popular idea, but would it be that bad of an idea to bring Eli Apple back? I worry about the depth of this group.
Well, I mean, Sidney Jones, DJ Turner, I think those are the guys you're looking at. But, I mean, Eli Apple has been a polarizing player that has been better at times than he gets credit for, but also just he's loud. There's a lot there that comes with him, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but if Chidobe Awuzie is not the standard of player that he was before he got hurt, or
early season injury though, that's got to be helpful there.
Yes, I agree. Or say they sustain one injury in the cornerback room,
he's on speed dial.
It's just a group that DJ Turner, being a rookie, we obviously saw how they handled Daxton Hill last year. Very deliberate in taking their time and getting him ready to step in. So DJ Turner, I think there's a little bit of pressure there to be ready to play, and if not, then I would not mind seeing this team go out and get another veteran corner in the build-up to the start of the season.
Yeah, I think Eli Apple makes sense. You're going to roster 6 corners, so Chidobe, DJ Turner, Hilton, Cam Taylor-Britt, Sidney Jones, like you have room for another guy. I mean, Allen George and Jalen Davis aren't preventing me from bringing in better depth than Eli Apple.
Right. So that's just as I look at the defense, and I largely agree with you. You kind of threw me under the bus here, but the front seven, I have quality starter or cornerstones for 6 of the 7 spots in the defense.
Hey, and the one player's not the one you think, guys.
Right. And it's not Germaine Pratt. It's not Germaine Pratt.
Blue.
And I gave an adequate starter grade to the 7th player in the box. I've now put the depth chart up once, so they don't know yet, which is fun. And we'll put it up when we have to come to consensus at the end of segment 3. But, I think the front, being able to bring back Germaine Pratt, who kind of felt like it was assumed that he was going to be gone, is nice. Having DJ Reader healthy for a full season will be nice. They have some young players and some interesting depth between Miles Murphy, who they drafted in the first round, Cam Sample, Joseph Asai, Jeffrey Gunter. kind of have a type, right, with their edge guys, and they're all these big, long, physical pass rush types. And we would be remiss to not give flowers to Trey Hendrickson for being an absolute monster as well. I know it's well-established, long-time listeners of Draft Dudes and Locked On NFL Scouting that we really love Trey Hendrickson's game, but I think they have plenty of juice in the pass rush room. Osai kind of popped for you quite a bit throughout the course of the year. Last year, they've got some cornerstone players in Mike Hilton and DJ Reader. They have some youth, some exciting youth in Taylor Britt, Daxton Hill, DJ Turner, Miles Murphy. And then they were able to run back the second level of that defense with Germaine Pratt and Logan Wilson. So
Logan Wilson's been a fun player to watch him ascend really second half of 2021. Turn that into a full season in 2022. Like, he looks like an absolute stud. They get Pratt back for a deal that, like, I wasn't expecting it to be as low. Yeah, it was a lot less. So, like, good for him, good for them on getting him back on that. But I will say this. Like the group, I get a little bit nervous if they have to lose DJ Reader for any length of time again. Josh Tupou has been there, but, there's certainly a big drop off there. And, even behind BJ Hill, they're counting on like Zach Carter and Jay Tufele to kind of take a step there. So
yeah, they don't really have
those guys got to stay healthy.
They don't really have a penetration rotational guy there either, right? Like, if you told me Zach Carter when we were projecting him from Florida, you kind of assumed he would be a base end, maybe kid. Like, he's more like Murphy and Osai than he is like a traditional 3-tech penetration type player.
Yeah. But they're kind of wish they had that type of player.
Yeah. I think it would really create a lot of problems with what they have on the edge. So
Shelby Harris is out there. Somebody should sign him.
Stop. No, can't happen.
Just saying, man. All right, coming to consensus here after a very, very quick break.
I'm going to throw up the big board for those of you who are watching on the YouTube channel. Nice blue Birddogs tumbler there you have, Joe.
Thank you, yes.
So our cornerstone players that we have for Cincinnati: Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, DJ Reader, Mike Hilton. Quality starters: Orlando Brown, Alex Kappa, Trey Hendrickson, B.J. Hill, Logan Wilson, Germaine Pratt, Chidobe Awuzie. The rest of the offensive line: Ted Karras, Jonah Williams / Lyle Collins, adequate level starters. Cordell Volson, incomplete evaluations. The players that we have to come to consensus on: wide receiver Tyler Boyd, running back Joe Mixon, and defensive end Sam Hubbard. Where would you like to start?
Tyler Boyd?
Sure, let's talk about Tyler Boyd.
All right, I have him as a quality starter. You have him adequate starter. He's just been one of the most productive slot receivers in the game, and that really it's been with Joe Burrow, but also without Joe Burrow. He's 28 years old. I think for that role that he fills, man, it's an important one for this team. The production speaks for itself. He's not like aging or in the decline. I feel really comfortable with him as like a quality piece of this offense.
So some of this is not Tyler Boyd's fault, right? You've got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You're automatically the third mouth to feed. And his yards per target did go up by a significant amount in each of the last two seasons. You think about 2019 and 2020, he was in the mid-sevens. Last year was 9.3, but some of that also came in large part because Jamar Chase missed a month, and it kind of changed the distribution of the offense. I just think about a really reliable player who is your third option in the passing game, who doesn't get a ton of volume. He gets a decent amount of volume, but he's caught 67 and 58 passes over the last two seasons. And he had the lowest yards per game total that he has had since 2017. And putting him in the bucket with the other quality starter wide receiver grades that we have given when reconciling the production and his role within the offense and how it has changed by the two cornerstone players you have on the outside, I hesitated a little bit to put him in the same bucket as Tyler Lockett, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Darnell Mooney, so on and so forth.
Very compelling argument. this is what I would say in response to that, because I think that's very, very fair. Through the lens of a slot. And I think this is, we didn't fall into this time around on defense, right? Like, we just didn't, that didn't have to happen.
With the nickel?
Right. But like through the lens, if you look at him
slot.
as a slot player, like in the world of receivers, I would agree he's a yellow. In the world of slots, and that's the lens that I put on him, you know, that's where I got myself to the blue on him.
So I guess the receivers that we've done thus far, and this is our 19th team, that are probably going to be high-volume slot players. We willing to put Mooney in that world and have Moore and Claypool as the outside guys? I'm just trying to identify blues that we've given that's like, yeah, you might take a majority of your snaps in the slot.
Yeah, I would think so there. That makes sense.
And then with Lockett, is Jackson, Smith, and Jigba going to be an exclusive slot, or is Lockett maybe going to take some reps on the inside?
I think Tyler will play a good amount of inside and outside.
So those are the kind of the two names that have some correlation to the role that we're talking about with Tyler, but I would agree with you that he is a leg up from Isaiah McKenzie and Zay Jones and Braxton Berrios and Olamide Zacchaeus and Juwan Jennings and Curtis Samuel. And
so maybe
Scotty
what has
Miller.
to be done here is in our application of the scoring, be mindful of this. Because I see what you're saying. Wide receiver lexicon yellow, slot lexicon blue.
Okay. Well, he's going to play slot for Cincinnati unless there's an injury. And hey, maybe with, Charlie Jones and Andre Yusevich, he won't play if there's an injury. Maybe one of those guys can step up and play outside and keep Tyler where he's best suited to play. But if the vision for Cincinnati is that he plays in the slot, then we probably need to grade him with the slot lens, right?
I would agree with that.
Okay. Joe Mixon. Go ahead, make your case. I had him as an adequate starter.
My guy. You are the Joe Mixon guy coming out of college, and I've become the Joe Mixon guy in the NFL. He didn't have his best season last year. I'm not going to debate that. He did not have his best season last year. I think that my grade for him, I gave him the quality starter label. My grade here is really reflective of a lot of what I saw from him in 2021 in that type of role, and what he can mean as a pass catcher. Like however you want to reconcile last year, I understand it. I think the overall body of work has been more quality starter, though.
I'm going to read you some numbers, okay? 3.9, 4.1, and 3.6.
You're a big yards per carry guy.
Well, it's yards per attempt the last 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
My guy put up 1,200 rushing yards because he carried the ball 300 times last year in 2021. And I think their offense is probably healthier not having Joe Mixon run the ball 300 times and then catch 42 balls. Now, he caught 60 passes last year. I just think he's at this stage, I think you can look at the last 3 seasons, he's been a volume guy, not necessarily an efficiency guy. And 58.1 yards per game from a per game perspective on 15 carries versus the last 3 seasons was 18 carries a game for 75, 19 carries per game, rounding up 20 carries per game for 71, and 17 carries per game for 71. Like his most efficient season was his second year in 2018, and that's a long time ago. Now he's had 3 1,400-plus yard seasons total, but those two of those 3 came on 313 and 334 touches. And in those 2 seasons, he averaged 4.5 yards per touch. So
I think the volume stats are interesting. The efficiency stats are the efficiency stats will tell you that Joe Mixon's a middle of the pack running back. His EPA per rush right in the middle of the pack. His rushing yards over expectation, middle of the pack. He's also middle of the pack right there with Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. reconciling all this is difficult.
And
I don't want to I'm not going to put I think that all of that tells us that he's not a cornerstone.
correct. But what if you look at middle of the pack efficiency standpoint, and he didn't play particularly the tape says that he didn't play.
I'll go yellow.
Okay.
But Saquon Barkley's probably going to be. I don't know, man.
What? Well, remember what I graded Saquon Barkley last summer when we did the presentation on the Giants.
And that's over a 3-year stretch. The numbers that I gave you, 2020. No, that's 2022. Excuse me. Yeah, 2022.
The Saquon Barkley argument is an interesting one, and obviously that's a fascinating storyline that we don't really have time to do right now because we're going through this team series, and he hasn't signed his tender, and he hasn't ruled out sitting out the season. But we'll cross that bridge, right? But I think I don't think invoking Saquon helps Joe Mixon here.
Right.
Sam Hubbard's our last name.
All right.
I gave him an adequate starter. You gave him a quality starter.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it came back to the old Joe Marino tactic of looking at other edge rushers that we put in these buckets.
Okay.
And I don't think he's in the same tier as his teammate, Trey Hendrickson. And your other blues are like Zadarius Smith, Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, Josh Sweat, Alex Highsmith.
I'll take the L.
Okay.
Call mercy there. I just wanted to show my love for Sam Hubbard,
and understandably so. He's a good player,
but I don't think I can't argue against that. I'm looking up his pass rush productivity and all that. It's not good. So,
and he's in a bucket with guys like Frank Clark and Preston Smith and Jerry Hughes.
Yeah, that seems appropriate. All right.
Okay. Well, there you go. There is your consensus, and there is your, if you are on the YouTube channel, you can see the full depth chart. I'll leave it up for 3 Mississippi before I take it back down. And we put a bow on this conversation. There's your 3 Mississippi for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe, it's in the bag. Who we got tomorrow?
Bills Mafia.
Bills Mafia tomorrow.
Come on by.
Hey,
we're going to see.
Special shout out to Cleveland Browns and Seattle Seahawks fans.
Showed up
in the YouTube.
Showed up.
We had somebody who reached out to us at the end of last week. Hey, what helps you the most? Downloading the podcast, the YouTube channel. Do all of it, please. But hit subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. But then swing over to the YouTube channel and engage with us there. I mean, we had Cleveland in 96 hours almost set the #1 view count for any team that we've done, and the team that's in first place was the Colts, and we did them on May 8th, and they were the first team that we did. So Cleveland almost caught them in 92 or 96 hours. Shout out to the Browns. The Dog Pound.
The Dog Pound. Hope they picked the right logo. I didn't see how that.
I haven't seen the updates on that either, but that is a critical storyline for this offseason.
Bengals get better, Kyle?
I don't know that they did. I think there were some parallel steps. I think they're banking on the guys that they've drafted to have in the pipeline, and I think that's a very good approach when you are getting ready to pay Joe Burrow and getting ready to pay Jamar Chase, that you kind of have to brace yourself for a little bit and make some tough decisions, but letting the safeties go. That you have a little bit of an unproven track record with your cornerback depth. You have Chidobe Awuzie coming back off of an injury. Like you said, they effectively just ran things back, and I think Orlando Brown Jr. is probably a better left tackle than Jonah Williams.
I agree.
I'd say Irv Smith is maybe a parallel move. So I'd say maybe you're marginally better on offense, but I don't think you're better on defense until we see what Dax Hill looks like in that role and Cam Taylor-Britt with a full year of experience. So I don't think so, but I don't think they're far from what they were last year as a team that very easily could have played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're right there. They're right there at the top of the AFC,
Yeah.
but I see it the same way. Maybe they're better on offense with swapping in Brown. We'll see about RB2. I don't know. Is Smith going to come in and be what Hurst was at tight ends? But I think you do have a question about the defense, and safeties are an important part of a disguised defense and a versatile, like multiple look defense. You know, you got a couple of new guys in the fray here. So maybe they're not better, but I mean,
I don't think they're worse.
AFC as any team. Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We're Draft Dudes, Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find us on podcast wherever you listen, and on YouTube. Hit subscribe to the channel, comment, follow along with us. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. Your teams every day. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Monday. We'll be back in tomorrow to break down the Bills.